Welcome to Resume the Podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Page, and I'm here to spread the message that you can, in fact, be happy in your career. I'm a former executive recruiter turned career coach, and I am obsessed with learning about why people have chosen their career, what led them to that decision, and how they achieved happiness in the process. So, come join the ongoing conversation that exposes you to career paths of all origins with one thing in common: happiness. So, press play and let's resume the conversation with this week's episode. Hey guys, and welcome to the very first recap episode of Resume the Podcast. I have been wanting to do a solo episode for a really long time, and mainly just to say thank you for tuning in and listening and subscribing and sharing. It really, really means a lot. And I am just so grateful that you guys tune in every week. And I love doing this. I love doing this podcast. I love talking to people. And I love talking to people from all over the world, all over the States, people from different backgrounds and cultures. I was a poli-sci major with a concentration in international relations. And I found it really difficult to keep that going after I graduated because when I was in school, I had incredible opportunities to go abroad and do these incredible, immersive, intensive programs abroad. And once you graduate and you're out of that structure of school, I just found it really difficult to figure out how to do that in my life. And I did not think that doing this podcast would kind of fill that void. But it has, and it's totally unexpected and super cool. And I love it. It's not why I started the podcast, but I really, really love that it's a byproduct of it. So thank you. Thank you to all of my guests who have come on so far and who are scheduled to come on. I'm just beyond humbled that I get to do this. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. If you haven't listened to any of my episodes prior to this one, you should. And for those of you who have, you have probably figured out by now that I am very obsessed with figuring out and learning why people have chosen the careers that they have, especially those who are happy in their careers and how they wound up in the career that they did and what they exactly did, what exactly that they did to get there and how they recognize that that career was the one for them. So I like to know kind of those really nitty gritty details and the exact steps that they took. Okay, so you have a business partner. That's amazing. How did you meet? Was it a cold call? Was it a warm connection? How was that introduction? Who introduced you? What did you say to break the ice? So that's always kind of awkward, especially when you're going to someone who you know that you want something from them and they know that too. So it's always interesting to me to hear those stories. Okay, how did you navigate that without being desperate or without it coming off too salesy? So how did you do that? How did you know that they were the one to tie your buggy to, so to speak? And how did you continue to cultivate that relationship? So I like to bring it down to earth a little bit. So you're not just hearing stories that sound like, oh, we met at this quaint little coffee shop and we hit it off and we're best friends and now we're super successful. That happens and it's cool and I love it. And I hope it happens to you. But I want to know, how did you choose that coffee shop? What did you order? Who did you bump into each other or did you lock eyes from across the room? How was that meeting initiated? Who made the first move? How was it received? And why did you keep the conversation going? What was so interesting about this person? Just so it doesn't seem so abstract and unattainable, because I think that we can hear a lot about these really successful people, whether or not they're an entrepreneur or they are enjoying a very high position in a company, whatever it is. Sometimes the stories can seem so one-off coincidental that they seem unattainable, or that they just came from this really, really obscure background and just happen to have all these perfect qualities for this thing. And again, it seems unattainable. So my hope in hearing these stories from people, random people just around the globe who are happy in their careers, and that spreading that concept that you can be happy in your career will hopefully guide you or prompt you or a loved one towards signing up for that certificate that you've been eyeing, or maybe attending that webinar that looks super interesting to you and you can't really explain why, but you keep checking to see if it's full, or maybe applying for the job that you really, really want, even though it seems like you're a little underqualified, but you think you might be able to do it. Do it. Go for it. Nothing to lose, right? Because it is possible. It is, I swear, possible to enjoy your career. And by creating a career that makes you happy, your life as a result will be happier too. Because unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, work-life balance is forever going to be something that you have to manage. And one will affect the other, no matter how you slice it. And it is a lot harder to have a happy personal life if you're completely miserable at work every day. That negativity will spill over. It will wear you down, both emotionally and physically. I actually had a client who told me she had pivoted and was working on exactly how to pivot, but she had quit her job because she went to her doctor. She said she was having these really, really intense digestive issues and she couldn't figure out what it was. They did a bunch of blood tests. Everything came back normal. And he looked at her and said, you got to quit your job. It's too stressful and it's wreaking havoc on your body. So this is real. These are real things that can happen to you physically if you're in the wrong environment for yourself. And I'm hoping that by exposing you to people who are happy in their careers, it shows you just simply that it's possible. It's almost kind of like the 4-minute mile. If you're not familiar with the 4-minute mile, for a long time, it was considered absolutely impossible to run a 4-minute mile and no one could do it. It was ridiculous to even think about doing it. And then in 1954, Roger Bannister became the first person to do it. And since then, that quote unquote 4-minute barrier has been broken time and time and time and time and time again. So we just needed to be shown that it's possible. And sometimes that's it. Sometimes that's all we need. We just need to see the proof that it's possible. And it will hopefully plant a seed that if they can do it, maybe so can I. So with that, today I wanted to offer you guys 3 things that I learned from recording my first 10 episodes with people who are happy in their careers. So let's get right to it. First thing that I learned is to follow your excitement. This is something that I've heard before, and I think the first time I heard it was from Esther and Abraham Hicks in the book, Ask and It Is Given. And it's something that I've noticed a lot of my guests talking about. So your excitement can also be called your interest, your obsession, your passion, but whatever you want to call it, it's the thing that hooks your attention time and time again. And seriously, all of my guests who have hit on this have confirmed that by doing this, by listening to that signal, that internal call to action, it's never wrong. And it will always lead you to the next great thing, and then the next great thing, and so on and so on and so on. Which brings me to the second thing that I learned, which is there's really no plan. I just felt all of the planners out there cringe, but I swear it's a good thing. Most of my guests who I've had on didn't really have a super defined plan. They might have had a loose plan, but not so much a concrete, can't veer off of this or else type plan. And here is why that is genius. Because by allowing some space for the unexpected, that unexpected chance meeting, the unexpected move to a different country or state or city, or the unexpected, I don't know, pandemic. That was an unplanned event that we can all relate to. By allowing space for the unexpected, it doesn't just allow you the freedom to explore what's working and what isn't working for you. It also helps you cultivate adaptability. So when things that are unexpected are thrown at us, we're much more agile and we're not as likely to get thrown off completely off of our game. So one guest, Alex Wolf, our guest on episode 3, said that while he was in school, he was working at this swanky high-end restaurant just to make money, but he loved it. He loved it more than school. And instead of saying, oh, I'm in school and that's what people do and I have to finish even though I don't like it because I'm already here and I need to have a degree, he turned it on its head and instead said, I love this job. I'm really making good money. This job requires a lot of energy and I'm young and I have that energy now. I also don't have any personal ties or responsibilities and school will always be here if I need it. So he weighed the options and he left school. and he has had the coolest career. If you haven't listened to episode 3, it's really good. He's really got like a story, and it's so interesting. I'm not telling you to go quit school. I'm just saying for him, he was way more excited and way more interested in this side job that was already giving back to him. So he was able to see the benefits of it already. And he kind of just went with it and knew that school was something that he could always go back to. I think that's another thing that we can tend to either forget or maybe blow out of proportion a little bit. But usually the options that we're weighing, so like if I leave school or if I leave this job, like what will happen? It's probably not as bad as you think. And you can probably always go back to something, either the exact same thing, if that's what you end up realizing that, oh, maybe this did work, or something like it. So usually it's not as catastrophic as we make it out in our head. So by tuning into that excitement and allowing yourself the freedom to explore, your plan will appear in front of you. And if you force a plan that doesn't fit, you'll end up probably doing this exploration later on in life, which is also fine. Episode 2, Debbie. She talks about how she left a corporate job after like 30 years to go do something completely and totally different in a totally different industry. There's no timeline except yours. I'm going to say that again. There's no timeline except yours. And the third and final thing that I've learned, fear and doubt are here to stay. And they're really, really, really annoying, and they're very real. But we all deal with both fear and doubt on a daily basis. So there's no magic remedy to get rid of them. But what I have learned from my wise guest is that we just have to acknowledge them. I'm afraid. I have a lot of self-doubt, and go for it anyway. However, I have heard multiple guests talk about this in either exact terms or within their own story. And one way to dilute that imposter syndrome, because that's essentially what we're talking about here is imposter syndrome. One way to dilute that is simply to prepare. So do the research, read the books, listen to the podcasts, watch the documentary, whatever medium works for you, whichever one helps you retain the most information. Immerse yourself in whatever that subject matter is that you're interested in and absorb as much as you can. Just be a sponge and absorb. Also, bonus thing that I learned, you're probably more qualified than you think. If Susie can do it, why can't you? And if you're sitting there coming up with legit reasons, great, go for it. There's your plan of action. So what did Susie do to get there? Chances are you're probably farther along the path than you think. Also, keep in mind that your path is going to be way different than Susie's because it's yours. You have a whole host of qualities and experiences to offer that nobody else has because they aren't you. And I know that sounds cheesy, but it's true. So if you think about your experiences and whatever that thing is that you are excited about, following your excitement, experience plus excitement equals happiness. So going back over, first thing I learned, follow your excitement. Second thing, there's really no plan. And if there is, it's a loose plan. Number 3, fear and doubt are here to stay, but do it anyway. And our bonus 4, you're probably more qualified than you think. Thank you guys so much. I hope that this resonated with you. If it did, as always, I'd love for you to subscribe and share with a friend that you think might love this episode. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode. I'm so grateful for your precious time and energy. And if anything resonated with you, please feel free to share with a friend and subscribe. If you're interested in career coaching, I would love to hear from you. Email me at Courtney@resume-careers.com and follow me on Instagram at Courtney Austin Page. Thank you so much and see you next week.